Welcome back, everybody. Another follow-up boss webinar, Bosses in Action. We've got Dan Corkill here with us, and we want to talk about how we can shift into the market that we're in. Some areas are already in the middle of that shift, some aren't. And so if you're in the middle of it, great, pay attention. If not, pay attention because it might be coming to your area. The first thing I can tell you when it comes to any shift is that you've got to be paying attention to your local markets because they're slightly different in all of them. Dan, what are you noticing overall? Because you're running a tech company with real estate agents. What are you hearing on that end as far as, are they worried? Are a lot more people coming in and purchasing more CRM on the follow-up boss side? Or are they scaling back and saying, hey, we don't need this? What have you noticed so far?
Yeah, we haven't seen a massive change in people signing up or anything like that. I think people still want to, get their systems dialed in and change CRMs and so on. A little bit in some ways, people still want to buy houses. They still want to sell houses, right? Even though you might be hearing all this, things that are going on in the news with the Fed and rising rates and stuff, there's just practically people still need somewhere to live. So, we haven't seen a massive change. I guess we've seen a little bit of just people, maybe they had 10 users in their follow-up boss account and they weren't using 3 of them. So they're like, okay, well, let me just clean up those users, maybe save a little bit of money, things like that, which I think is smart. I would recommend, that's something people should be doing at this time, right? Look what you're paying for everything, both personally and also for your business, and say, wait a minute, what's this charge I keep getting, because those build up over time, as you know, right?
That's true, man. That's a really good point. I think what we're looking at right now doing is just taking a look at the tech that we have and saying, hey, are we actually using that? Should we be using it? Right? And I don't think we asked that question. Should we be using it? Because if we're not using it, a lot of people just say, well, let's just get rid of it. But that's not the right question. I think is, should we be using it? Because when I look at something like Follow-Up Boss, just on the CRM portion of it is, how can I use it better? How do you suggest people use this specific CRM better?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely some opportunities. We had someone paying for, Ring Central, and I would actually move a lot of that into Follow-Up Boss, which they're already paying for, right? So they're not paying us anything extra, but they're getting rid of a big external phone bill. So in this case, $1,000, $1,500. But even if it's smaller than that, again, I've been looking at a lot of things personally and for the business where I'm like, wait a minute, why am I spending $100 a month here? And all those $100 do add up. But yeah, I would be looking at the phone system in Follow-Up Boss. If you are paying for a separate phone system, I think it's not just cost savings, it's also just efficiency because you can have everything in one place. So I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about because when people go and buy a CRM, they don't think, let's replace my phone system. But yeah, that's something, that we've got built in.
That's true. You guys did build that and you did a great job. I think if we look at other integrations outside of things that are built in, a lot of us have let's say MailChimp or BombBomb or Mojo, and some of us get Facebook lead ads, but we didn't know that they were built into this API process that you guys have. And I think that's where we need to take a look at the tech and say, are we combining these? Are we using them well? And some people haven't even connected their MailChimp to Follow-Up Boss. And dude, that's been super powerful for us, as well as something like the Pixel that's built in, right? And I think people here, when I talk to them, because we get to talk to a lot of people on the back end when we're setting up their stuff, they're like, whoa, I didn't know you could do that, right? And that's, to me, that all of a sudden becomes more useful if we connect our main CRM with other tech that we're using. That's been super important for me as far as being able to use this. So as far as what's happening next with Follow-Up Boss, what are you guys looking to add? What are you guys looking to change that can help us as the agent?
Yeah, so a lot of really what we're working on now is how do we redesign things to be better and easier to use? So as you know, Tristan, there's a lot of functionality, right? You got Pixel, you got a phone system, you got, a calendar, you got action plans, you got automation. So basically we're doing a lot of things. Some of those features we developed quite a long time ago, the calendar, for example, we added about 5 years ago. And so a lot of like what we're doing is like, hey, we build a calendar of the day in 2022, 2023. What would that look like? Like, how can we make it more useful? So yeah, a little bit of it is like, how do we go back to like some features which people use a lot and just make them better, for lack of a better word, both easier to use, add functionality that people are asking for. Like someone was asking the Facebook group yesterday, like, hey, like, why can't you set up your action plans to be like triggered by different minutes instead of like right now it's by day? And like the reality is it's just because like 8-10 years ago when we built that feature, that's how we built it, and we didn't know people wanted minutes back then, and it didn't make sense to implement. But that's the kind of thing where we're going to go back and add that kind of power and flexibility. So yeah, trying to get people more out of the features they're using, because I do think there's some, there's new features we'll add as well, but there's just like a diminishing return. Like if we're sort of like, hey, today like we have 50 features you could be using, and tomorrow we're going to have 60. It's sort of like we would rather make the features better to everyone uses, if that makes sense.
That does make sense, dude. On that line, you just made me think of something. You know how on the back end, I'll just show you. Hold on, since I have it open, because cool. I think this could be super useful. So you know how on the top we've got these lists right here at the top. Boom.
Yep.
Boom. Boom. I think when I coach a lot of these different agents, we open up their follow-up boss accounts, and they don't even know that they should be using this a certain way. So I think if maybe like for me, I use Ylopo. There are other people who use Realtor.com or Zillow or a combination. If we were to sign up for follow-up boss, one of the questions is asked like, what's your lead source? Great. Let me just click a button, and now you have on the lists the exact way you should be following up, because some people don't know that actually simplifies the process for you and your agents. So kind of like different templates, man. I think that would be helpful for a lot of agents.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something we're thinking about, like kind of like you already said, like both for someone new that signs up to Follow Up Boss, but for all the existing teams on Follow Up Boss that add an agent, like how can we make it even easier for that person to get started? So that's definitely something that we're looking at, which again, it's not about, they don't need 10 more features to get started. They actually just need to know how to use smart lists and the things that we do have. So.
Set it up, have a button that sets it all up for us. Here are the tags, boom, right? I mean, you guys already start with great, what were they? With the lists, you already have great sources that we could choose and stages, right? But I think what we need is somebody to just set it up with a button, like boom. Oh, you're with Ylopo? Bam, right? Because sometimes we've gone to these other companies and they're great companies, but they kind of screw up our follow-up boss account, right? And so,
yeah. There's a lot of different ways of doing things. But yeah, that's like as well, like we want to kind of do a bit more of like partnering with coaches or different companies and saying, hey, like what's the Tom Ferry way of doing this, or what's the John Chaplak way of doing this, or what's the Lab Code Agents way of doing this? And like again, try and bring some of that coaching to the system. So that's definitely on our mind, and I think definitely a powerful part of it as well.
I like that, man. And we've got two things coming up too. We've got the live event in Las Vegas, which I'm excited about. That's pretty crazy. I like that. I'm glad you guys are finally doing that. And then we've got the Conversion Summit coming in sooner. Let me put up the link for that. That's September 22nd. That's just around the corner. And I'll put it inside.
I think.
Yep. Let me put that in there. There you guys go. Jump in on that one. We'll put it inside of the group as well. Dan, what are you looking at as far as simplifying when it comes to helping out the agents? So we were talking about additions, and you mentioned that sometimes it's not about adding the bells and whistles. Sometimes it's just about making what we have easier to use. What does that look like to you when you say that simplification?
Yeah, so kind of like the process is like looking at like a lot of these areas. And I just use the calendar as an example. So we may go back to like, okay, well, what's all the feedback we got on the calendar over the last 5 years, and then sort of combining the feedback that we're getting from our customers with also like, what are we seeing like the most innovative calendar companies doing? Not that like we're trying to be the next, I don't know, Google Calendar or whatever, like Fantastical is the one I use and really like. But it's
Yeah.
sort of like, well, what things that they do really well that maybe we could incorporate in Follow Up Boss, you know? So it's a lot of just trying to combine all that feedback with it. Again, like what are the most modern apps doing? And we're really looking at that across the app. So like every feature really. So like reporting, you know, smart list, action plans, like a lot of the things we talked about already. In general, just looking at like where we can improve the UX. So like, yeah, just make things easier. If it was like a several clicks before, how could it be one click? Or how could it just be more intuitive? So even like you were showing me the smart list, we have a lot of people now that are like, they're really amazed when someone explains to them, kind of like you were saying, what they can do. But before that, they don't get it because it's not as intuitive as it could be. Right? So, you know, again, like maybe that's just a video in the app, or like maybe it's a different way, different design to show them or something. Yeah, so that's a lot of what we're looking at. I mean, on mobile, there's just a lot of like little things where it's like just making like cut and pasting easier, or like, yeah, it's just like small things that don't sound like much, but like when you're trying to do your follow up, it really adds up to just an easier and smoother experience. So,
dude, I like that. I like that. And yes, I think that is the key. What are you noticing that some of the CRMs that you're looking at and saying, oh, that's kind of cool. What are you seeing that world change and morph into more of? Because at one point we were noticing that everybody was going the all-in-one route. Remember that? And then you guys stood out and you're like, no, not us. And then you did it so well that everybody's like now having second thoughts. It's like, well, damn, maybe we should be a standalone like Follow Up Boss because you set the standard. But what are you looking at with CRMs and saying, that's cool, we should add that, or this is how it's morphing? What does that look like to you?
Yeah, you know, in the real estate space, it does seem like it's still a bit of more about the all-in-one, you know, like it definitely, I think it's very hard for the businesses that have gone down that path. Like if they get rid of that revenue stream of like selling websites and leads, like I just think that's very impractical because no one really wants to see their revenue get cut. Ever really, but let alone by like as much as it would be if you had that aspect of your business and you got rid of it. Yeah, in terms of like the general CRM market, like, you know, we look at the other CRMs like HubSpot, Salesforce, you know, we don't follow everything they do. I think in general, they are very focused on similar things. Like, again, like how do we make this simple? How do we make it easy to use? How do we improve our education? So again, like, you know, it's great to have all these features, but if we're not teaching people how to use them and drive real business value, then, you know, we kind of miss the mark a bit. So that's honestly like why we're trying to do more things like the masterminds, the FUB summit, like the FUBCon in November, right? Because yeah, at the end of the day, like if we can bring our best users together, build the community, and they can share how they've been successful with each other, like that's just it. I think a lot of companies are focused on that because, I mean, you know, you run the biggest Facebook group for real estate, right? But like this is just, I don't think community is obviously going to go away. It's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So, you know, that's one way that we're investing back in them, I suppose.
I like that, man. Is there ever going to be a merch store? Like a full-on Follow Up Boss merch store, like hats and mugs and stickers, tattoos, all that good stuff.
Yeah, that'd be cool. If anyone wants to get a tattoo, I'll pay for it. But
at the event in Vegas, I'm pretty sure after a party, you get up on stage and say, anybody want to get a Follow Up Boss tattoo? I'll pay for it. It'll happen.
I need some serious disclaimers on that. But you know, yeah, right now we just give away all our merch. So it's kind of, you know, again, like it's just sort of, we look at it as an investment back in like people that, you know, want to represent the brand. And yeah, just, you know, it's like a thank you to our customers. So right now, we don't have anything that I can tell you behind the scenes. You may know this as well, but like it is a major problem right now getting anything. So like getting shirts, getting hats, all these like supply chain issues. It's crazy. So I don't know if we launch a merch store, but that could be cool. Let people buy some stuff.
Well, I'm thinking along the lines of community, right? So that is a bigger sense of the community factor. And I think the in-person events, the best thing you can do right now, look at these bigger real estate companies and tech companies that bring people together in the same way, right? So Really good point. All right. What are you noticing that's changing across the United States when it comes to real estate? Are you noticing that, and I'm not talking about prices dropping, okay? I'm talking about the agents. What are you noticing on the agent side, mindset wise, work wise? What does it look like?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to ask you a similar, see your take on this afterwards. But like, what I was really impressed by in COVID was that like a lot of our customers, they really just got to work, so they sort of said, okay, we can't control this, but I can control my effort, I can control how I show up, I can control the message I'm putting out. And so I think I'm starting to see a lot of that now, where people are they do know there's a shift. Consumers probably feel that already, right? And they're putting out content which speaks to that, because at the end of the day, you want to be that trusted expert in your market, right? And
Yep.
so, yeah, I think it's going to be a similar thing, where I think people are going to show up more and look at it as an opportunity. And I think that's the best way to respond, with what you can control. So I'm starting to see that, especially from like our top performing teams and leaders, like that's, to me, I just look at their Instagram and like that's what they're talking about, right? Or their Facebook. But I don't know, at the sort of like, I'm sure some people are sort of rethinking their move to real estate, if they're maybe like a newer agent, things like that. So again, I guess the other thing that I'm seeing is like, it's an interesting time with all these tech stocks being down and real estate stocks being down.
Yeah.
So a lot of people maybe that were super happy being at this company before, now they're suddenly thinking like, wait a minute, why am I here again? And it seems like it's a big opportunity for recruiting, especially if you've got a lot to offer within your team or brokerage. And so I don't know, that would be just something that just, again, it seems like an opportunity. If you're putting out that positive message about how, what you're doing and like how you're going to support people through this shift. It just, again, it seems like that's an opportunity we're seeing some teams take advantage of.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm gonna just dig in deeper into one portion that you said, where some stocks, some companies have dropped significantly, and now they're thinking, well, am I in the right place? And you have an opportunity to play for recruiting. But you know what plays a big, and this is me as a real estate agent, what plays a big part in me deciding whether or not I'm going to switch, if I see an opportunity, is how much effort is that going to take for me to switch my team to another brokerage? And believe it or not, I've stopped a few times just from the CRM aspect, right? This is previous. But I've been with you since I left one time for like a year and I came back. Okay. But 2011-ish, 12-ish. And then I came back. But that makes it a lot easier for me to say, oh yeah, I don't have to worry about my database being tied to a specific brokerage. I can go anywhere I want. And believe it or not, dude, that plays a big role into this. This is why brokerages say, hey, don't worry about it. We got you covered. Use our database. And this is where I say don't, right? Don't. So I think it plays a big part into it.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I do think that there are, some of our customers which are savvy, and it's like Follow-Up Boss. Not that they're leading with Follow-Up Boss as their pitch, right? But they're saying, hey, I've got Follow-Up Boss. I've got this website provider, whether it's Ylopo or another one. And they're saying like, here's this tech stack I've already put in place and my team's already seeing success with. And they sort of like speak to that fear. A lot of times maybe they are with another brokerage where maybe they're all locked into their CRM, or maybe their CRM is not that good or whatever. And again, like using that, well, hey, like here's what we're doing over here. Let us demo how everything easy the technology is over here. So your team's actually going to really love this, instead of like you're saying, like everyone has that fear, right? I mean, I remember even when I moved CRMs, like we used to use a different CRM before we developed Follow-Up Boss so much. And I had exactly the same fears. I was worried about losing data. I was worried about, oh, well, what's going to happen like with my notes, because people are working in here, but I've already switched it. Like there's a lot of fears that come up, even for technical people. And so, yeah, but again, it's sort of, I think you can, I do think it's an opportunity, and maybe it's just a place where you can see like, hey, are you really set up with the technology for the next 5 years? Is what you've got now cutting it? Because I do think some of the most successful people in real estate are great people, right? And been building a business for 20 years, and their technology is like 20 years old as well, right? Or 10 years old. And it's like, okay, imagine if we can keep all the great parts of your business and all your client list, and then add great technology on top of it. I mean, like, that's a win-win, right?
Of course, dude. Of course. All right, man. To wrap it up, because we've got a couple minutes here, I have one last question for you. What podcast do you listen to?
Oh, interesting. I listen to the All In podcast. Do you know that one?
Ooh, no. Now I'm gonna have to look at it. Hold on. Oh, I got it. I found it. I'm gonna listen to it. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you. Everyone, thanks for joining us. Dan, I'll see you at the Follow Up Boss virtual event and then in person.
All right. Awesome, man. Looking forward to it, Tristan. See you
Thanks,
later.
buddy.